Out on that wind-bit ridge, the world was nothing but gray sky, wet earth, and one woman who refused to quit. She dragged a timber uphill alone, hands bleeding through torn gloves, leaving dark smears on the pale wood. When her boot slid in the mud, she caught herself on one knee, swallowed a groan, and kept pulling. The beam was twice her size, a rough-hewed pine that barked against rock and root, yet she treated it like a debt that had to be paid before nightfall. Every breath left her mouth in a cold white cloud. Up above, where the ridge broke against the horizon, a cowboy sat his horse without moving. 3 days he'd watched her from that perch. Not a word, not a wave, just a steady witness while she wrestled a cabin out of the wild, one impossible piece at a time. 4 walls now, crooked but defiant. No roof, winter pressing close enough to taste. The kind of cold that slices a man open and salts the wound. She raised the hammer, missed the nail, hissed through her teeth, then hit again. Crooked, but in. She left it. He remembered another woman, another winter, and the terrible gospel of too late. Sarah, 2 years in the ground up on the hill behind his empty house while he'd chased work and coins and any road that wasn't home. He came back to a headstone and a silence so thick it strangled him. Too late became the only phrase that mattered. Down the slope, another hammer strike, echoing like a heartbeat across the valley. Steady, relentless, alone. His father's old gravel voice rode the wind. A man who waits for perfect conditions never plants, son. Cole Dawson turned his horse away, then stopped. On the slope below, the woman bent her back under a new beam. Her shoulders shook with the weight. The season's first flakes drifted gentle as lies. She didn't look up. Didn't stop. She worked like the world wasn't about to bury her. He nudged the horse downhill, slow, deliberate. She didn't hear him at first. Hoofbeats were swallowed by wind. The beam slid. She lunged and caught it with a cry that tore open something he'd hardened shut. Not this time, he thought. Not again. The sky clenched. Snow became a fist. Eliza Brennan made it as far as the half-built doorway before the storm took her legs. She went to her knees, still clutching the axe. The cold didn't bite anymore, that was the trick of it. It felt soft, sleepy, like falling into warm feathers. She tried to stand. The world tilted. She dropped into the drift and thought of her husband's grave and how maybe she'd see him soon. Strong arms lifted her, a voice low and steady at her ear. "I've got you." She reached for words and found none. The world winked out. When she woke, fire scorched her face and needles stabbed her hands, frost-bitten nerves clawing back from the edge. A heavy coat lay over her, smelling of leather and horse and pine. Firelight danced on canvas walls, her cabin, but warmer, hotter, fed with proper wood. A tall man sat by the door, hat brim low, broad shoulders bent to the task of patching the gap in her fourth wall. He wove pine branches and nailed scraps with hands that were quick and sure. He didn't turn when she stirred. Eliza's palm slid beneath the blanket, closed on the knife she kept there. "Get out," she rasped. He raised both hands, open, slow. "Storm's got us trapped, ma'am. I'll sleep by the door if it suits you." "I didn't ask for your help." "I know." His voice gentled. "That's why I gave it," she stared. Weathered face, lines cut by sun and wind, and something deeper. Grief maybe, kind eyes. That scared her worse than cruelty ever could. Kind men left, kind men died, kind men promised and broke. "You should go," she said. "Can't. Storm will kill us both if I try." He was right. Wind clawed the canvas. Snow hissed against wood. The bucket had skinned over with ice. She lowered the knife but kept it close. He went back to work, silent, tireless. She tried to watch him, tried to keep her eyes open, but exhaustion dragged her under. When she woke again, the fire was still a living thing. He was still awake, feeding it, keeping a watch that didn't need words. Morning found the world scraped clean and bone cold. The storm had moved on, leaving sunlight in hard, bright shards. Eliza made coffee, thin, bitter, all she had, and handed him a cup. It felt strange to say, but she made her. Cole showed up at first light the next morning, breath fogging the air, boots crunching frost-hardened ground. He didn't knock, didn't call out, just set to work like the ridge, the cabin, and the woman inside it were all simply the place he belonged. Eliza watched him from the doorway, arms folded, jaw set, like she was bracing herself for a blow that hadn't come yet, but always did eventually. She didn't offer coffee. He didn't ask. They worked in a rhythm that needed no discussion. He hauled the heavy beams. She steadied them with ropes and wedges. He drove nails. She measured joints. They didn't look at each other long. Didn't need to. The work spoke. By midday, the sun broke through the cloud cover, bright enough to sting winter-pale eyes. Eliza pulled her scarf tighter, breath slow and deliberate. Cole handed her the hammer without looking. Like the two of them had been doing this for years. "You don't talk much," she said finally. Words sharp from disuse. No reason to, unless there's something worth saying. His voice was even, not defensive. "So you speak only when necessary." Saves breath. He set another beam. She almost smiled. "Or avoids questions." He paused. A long second. Then, maybe that too, the wind picked up. Snow swirled across the ridge like drifting ash. They worked, in town, tongues wagged like loose shutters in a storm. Cole Dawson had once been the kind of man folks respected, nodded to, counted on, quiet, steady, hard-working, built his ranch up from nothing. Married good, lost hard. Folks pitied him just enough to leave him alone. Until now. Warren, the storekeeper, leaned over the counter, spreading gossip like it was his Christian duty. "He's out there every day," he whispered, loud enough for half the shop to hear. "With her. The Brennan widow. And we all know how that turned out the last time." "That woman's cursed," said Mrs. Whitlock, voice sharp and soured like old vinegar. "She couldn't keep her husband alive. Now she's dragging another man to ruin." "We ought to warn him," someone muttered. No one volunteered to try. It's one thing to talk about a man, another to stand in front of him and say the words. Cowards always choose the first. Back on the ridge, the day fell quiet again as the work slowed near dusk. The cabin's frame rose solid now, no longer a fragile thing that could blow apart in a good wind. The roof beams stretched overhead, angled like clasped hands. Eliza stared up at what they'd made. It wasn't finished, not even close, but it was possible now. Real. Standing. And there was something terrifying about hope made visible. Cole leaned against a post, wiping his hands. "Storm tonight," he said. "You should stay near the fire. Don't push it. Frostbite comes fast," she bristled. "I've survived worse without help." "I know. No judgment. Just truth. But you don't have to." The words hit harder than any winter wind. She turned away before he could see the way they landed. "You should go," she murmured. "They'll tear you apart for this." Cole's jaw flexed once. A slow breath. "They already have," he said. "I'm still here." He stepped toward his horse, paused before mounting. "I'll be back tomorrow." She didn't say yes, didn't say no, just watched him disappear into falling snow. That night the storm came in snarling, wind howling like wolves, snow slashing sideways. The cabin shuddered but held. Eliza sat near the fire, wrapping her hands in cloth, feeling the burn of the day's work in muscle and bone. She tried not to think. But thoughts don't take orders. She remembered her husband, Thomas, laughing, warm, alive. Before the debts. Before the drinking. Before the night he didn't come back. Before the preacher stood at her door and said God tests a woman who thinks she's stronger than her place. She remembered how every time someone said curse, she'd believe them more. But when Cole looked at her, he didn't see a warning. He saw a woman still standing. She whispered to the fire, barely sound at all. "Don't do this. Don't hope. Don't want. Don't." The fire cracked. Sparks leapt. Her heart didn't listen. Down the valley, Cole stood at Sarah's grave again, snow settling in his hair and beard. The storm clawed at him, but he stayed. He needed to say something aloud, something that had been stuck behind his ribs for 2 years. "I didn't choose someone new," he said quietly. "I just decided I didn't want to be dead anymore." The wind didn't answer. But it didn't argue either. He touched the wooden cross. "I'll do it right this time." Then he turned and walked into the dark, back toward the ridge where a roof waited to be, finished, and where a woman was. Trying her hardest not to hope, he was going to show up again and again and again, not with grand promises, but with a hammer and time, because out here, love wasn't spoken first, it was built. By the fourth morning, the ridge was buried in white. Snow clung thick to pine branches and drifted knee-deep against the cabin walls. The sky was clear now, sharp blue, cold enough to bite through wool. Eliza was already outside, axe in hand, splitting kindling with mechanical precision. The rhythm kept her thoughts quiet. Cole arrived without sound or announcement, leading his horse through the snow. She didn't turn, didn't greet him. But she didn't tense this time either. Their silence had shifted, no longer sharp like a knife, but steady like an understanding. He unloaded fresh timber from the wagon, stacking it by the cabin wall. "You came back," she said finally. "Roof's not done," he replied. She let out a slow breath, a small nod, the closest she ever came to welcome. They worked side by side. The day was cold, but sweat still gathered at the back of their necks as they hauled beams and hammered joints. Cole taught her where to brace her knee for leverage, how to use the weight of the hammer instead of fighting it. Eliza learned fast. She always had. Survival required it. At midday, she handed him a cup of coffee, thin, bitter, and barely warm. He drank it without commentary, though the expression in his eyes said it's terrible. She almost laughed. Almost. "You got hands built for this work," Cole said quietly, not as a compliment, but as a truth seen and acknowledged. Eliza didn't answer, but something in her shoulders eased. That afternoon, the snow-packed silence broke, not by nature, but by intrusion, hoofbeats. Slow, intentional, Mrs. Whitlock rode up the ridge wearing all black, perched high on a bay mare with polished leather reins. Her back was straight as a fence post, her gaze sharp, judgment ready like a blade she'd been sharpening her whole life. She dismounted but didn't fully step forward. Her eyes flicked between Cole, the cabin, Eliza. "Miss Brennan," she called. "I've brought bread." Eliza stepped forward, jaw tightening. "We don't need charity." Mrs. Whitlock smiled the way a snake bares its teeth. "Charity is for the deserving. This is caution." She placed the basket on a stump like she was laying flowers on a grave. Then she looked at Cole. "Mr. Dawson," she said, "people in town are talking." "Let them," he answered without looking up. "The preacher says this is unwise. Your place is in the community, with decent people, not—" Her eyes flicked to Eliza. "Ruin." Eliza's hand trembled on the hammer, but she didn't let go. Cole climbed down from the roof. He didn't raise his voice, didn't posture. He just spoke. "She's building something with her own hands, while the rest of you stand around defining righteousness by gossip." Mrs. Whitlock's expression soured. "Your reputation is mine to spend," Cole said simply. Silence, hard and cold. Mrs. Whitlock turned her gaze fully to Eliza. "You will bring that man misery, just as you did your husband." Eliza didn't flinch. Didn't flinch outwardly, at least. But inside, something cracked. Then Mrs. Whitlock rode away, the snow swallowing the sound of her horse. The ridge was quiet again, but it was not a peaceful quiet. Eliza went inside. Not slamming the door, not fleeing. Just gone. Cole waited. Gave her the space to come back if she wanted. Eventually, she did. They worked again, wordless, steady, not acknowledging the wound, only tending it with presence. When dusk came, they sat near the fire. Their hands were scraped raw, their shoulders heavy, but the cabin walls felt stronger than the morning had left them. Eliza stared into the flames, voice slow, cautious, like each word was a trial she might lose. "My husband didn't die because of me," she said, "but sometimes I believe it anyway." Cole didn't rush to contradict her, didn't drown her in comfort. He just said, "Pain makes liars of memory." She looked at him then. Really looked. The thaw didn't come all at once. Winter loosened its grip inch by inch, the snow melting in thin silver threads across the hillside. The cabin roof was nearly finished now, only the ridge beam and outer shingles left, but the work felt different than before. Less like survival, more like building something that might last. One morning, Cole showed up later than usual. Not by much, maybe an hour, but enough that Eliza noticed. He climbed off his horse slowly, movement stiff, jaw tight. She saw the bruising before he turned fully into the light, dark blooms along his ribs and cheekbone, a cut open near his eye. She froze. "Town?" she asked. Cole didn't answer at first. Just set down the sack of nails he'd brought, breath fogging in the cold. Eliza stepped closer, voice low. "Who?" He wiped dried blood from his knuckles. "Men who'd rather break something than understand it." She felt her throat tighten. "Not with pity, with fury." "Because of me?" "No." He met her eyes. Steady, steady, steady. Because of them. The words hit her chest like warmth she didn't know how to hold. He didn't want to talk about it, not the fight, not the humiliation, not the town turning its back. So she didn't ask. She just said sit and went inside. When she returned, she held a cloth and warm water. No speeches, no gentle coaxing, just care. He didn't flinch when she cleaned the cut, didn't pull away when her fingers brushed his cheek. They were quiet, and the quiet was full. You could walk away, she murmured. I could, he agreed. But you won't. No, he said. I won't, not promise, not confession, just truth. They returned to work, but the rhythm had changed. Not broken, shifted, like two melodies finally finding harmony. Cole climbed onto the roof, moving carefully, ribs sore but hands steady. Eliza passed shingles and held the ladder firm. The sun broke through the clouds that afternoon, golden light catching in her hair, and Cole found himself staring a moment too long. She noticed. He looked away. Neither said anything. They didn't need to. That evening, as the fire burned low, a soft knock echoed from the cabin door. Not urgent, not desperate, just hesitant. Eliza rose, heart climbing her ribs. On the doorstep stood a girl, maybe 8, maybe younger. Blonde hair tangled, cheeks flushed from the cold, boots too big. She held a small basket in both hands like a soldier presenting terms of surrender. Hope, Eliza breathed. The Doyle's youngest. Hope swallowed. Mama said you might need extra carrots. For stew, Eliza accepted the basket. Thank you. Hope nodded but didn't go. Her gaze flicked to Cole, still seated by the fire, mending a cracked tool handle. Hope stepped nearer, voice small. Mr. Dawson? My papa says you scared the wolves off last week. Cole didn't look up from the tool, just stared him down a while. Hope blinked. How'd you know it'd work? Cole shrugged. Didn't, but fear smells louder than courage. Had to decide which one I was letting speak. Hope nodded slowly, as if storing that away forever. Eliza watched the exchange, and something in her chest ached in a new, unfamiliar way. Not pain. Something warmer. Hope left soon after, her small boots crunching down the snowy path. When the door closed, Eliza turned to Cole, unable to push the words back this time. You helped them, too, she said. Just did what anyone ought to. No, she whispered. Not anyone. He didn't argue. Days passed, and the cabin neared completion. The roof sealed. The hearth cured. The windows framed. Eliza stood in the doorway one evening and realized it no longer looked like something built out of desperation. It looked like a home. She gripped the frame to steady herself, because hope was the most dangerous thing of all, and she was already holding too much of it. That night, another storm rolled over the valley. The wind hammered the shutters, but the roof held, strong and sure. Eliza and Cole sat close to the fire. She mended a shirt. He carved a piece of pine into something small and careful. What are you making? She asked. He turned the wood in his hand. A small horse was taking shape. Gentle, strong, patient. Don't know yet, he said. But they both knew he did. She set the shirt aside, hands trembling. Not from cold. You're not afraid anymore, she said. He leaned back, firelight warm over the bruises still healing across his face. No, I'm still afraid, just not letting fear decide for me, she swallowed hard. Teach me how to do that. He didn't answer with words. He just reached out, not to pull, not to claim, just to offer. Her hand hovered, then rested in his. Not trembling anymore. Outside the storm raged. Inside, something stronger held. Not certainty, but choice. The wolves came on a night so dark the stars hid behind cloud. No moon, no horizon. Just blackness pressing against the cabin walls. Eliza woke to the sound first. Not the wind, not the creak of timber. Something lower, closer. A growl at the edges of firelight. She sat up, heart pounding. Cole was already awake, sitting at the foot of the bedroll near the door, rifle laid across his knees. He didn't look surprised. Didn't look afraid. Just alert, ready, how many? She whispered. 3, maybe 5, he murmured back. Outside, the growls circled, soft as breathing. Predators didn't need to rush. Hunger gave them patience. Eliza's fingers tightened on the rifle. A tremor traced up her spine. Not from cold. Cole stood calm as stone. I'll step out. Eliza grabbed his coat sleeve. Are you out of your mind? He didn't answer. Just pushed the door open and stepped into the night. The cold hit like a slap. Eliza stood behind him in the doorway, breath sharp, boots rooted to the floorboards. The wolves hovered just beyond the fire's reach, shadows with teeth. Their eyes glowed gold, reflecting flame. One stepped forward, a large male, muzzle scarred, fur bristling. Cole fired one round into the air. The crack tore the night open. The pack flinched, scattered, then regrouped. All except the scarred one. He stayed, watching, measuring. Cole lowered the rifle. "Don't," Eliza breathed, but the word fell dead in the snow. Cole walked toward the wolf, not sprinting, not provoking, just walking. 10 feet away, he stopped. The world held still. The fire crackled behind them, its warmth a memory now. The wolf growled, deep and steady. Cole didn't raise the gun, didn't lift his hands, just stared, unmoving. 30 seconds passed, long enough for Eliza's heart to break itself in fear. Then the wolf turned, silent, faded into the tree line. The others followed. The night closed behind them like a curtain falling. Cole stepped back into the cabin. Eliza grabbed his arm, shaking. "You could have died," he shrugged. "Didn't. That's not the point." Cole looked at her. Really looked. Firelight on one side of his face, shadow on the other. "You think I don't know danger?" he said. "I've buried danger. I've lived with it. I've been it. But I'll be damned if I live scared of life itself." The words cracked something open inside her. "I'm not worth dying for," she burst. "Everyone I've ever loved has left me, died, run, broken. I bring ruin. I am the warning they whisper about." Cole stepped closer, voice rough and low. "That's not your decision to make." Her breath hitched. "What is?" "Whether you let someone stay." Silence, the kind that shakes loose the truth. Eliza's voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't know how to do this." Cole's reply was barely sound at all. "Neither do I." He reached up, slow as sunrise, and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. His hand was rough, calloused, yet softer than anything she'd felt in years. She leaned in first, not for passion, but for permission. Their foreheads touched. Then lips. The kiss was quiet, careful. The kind that said, "I'm still here." The kind that asked, "Are you?" When they pulled apart, she was crying. Cole didn't wipe the tears. Didn't hush her. Just held her face gently, steadying what shook. They sat beside the fire until dawn. No words, hands clasped, shoulders touching. The cabin warm. Cole rode toward town with a strange steadiness in his chest, half fear, half purpose. The kind of feeling a man gets when he knows he's doing the right thing, but also knows the world won't clap for it. The snow had thinned, but the cold still bit sharp. His ribs ached from where the fight bruises lived. He didn't think about them. He only thought about the roof, the woman waiting, and the promise he had spoken aloud. But good intentions don't soften hard hearts. The moment he stepped into the general store, conversations stopped. Eyes tracked him the way wolves watch a deer step into an open field. Warren, the storekeeper, leaned back behind the counter. His voice carried the smug tone of a man who'd waited for this moment. "No credit for you, Dawson." Cole set a handful of coins down. "I'm paying cash." Warren didn't touch it. "Doesn't matter. The town doesn't do business with men who lose their standards." 2 ranch hands stepped forward, big, mean, the kind who liked being the muscle in someone else's mouth. One smirked. "We hear you've been sleeping at the Brennan place." Cole didn't look at him. Just said, "My business is mine." The smirk widened. "Your wife barely cold in the ground and you already warming your bed?" "That what they teach where you're from?" Cole didn't remember deciding to swing. His fist moved faster than his thoughts. The man hit the floor, chair crashing beside him. The second lunged. Cole blocked, but more hands grabbed him. A shove. A blow. A boot. The room spun, shelves toppled. Then he was outside. In the mud, blood in his mouth, ribs burning, breath ragged. The townsfolk watched from porches and windows. No one moved to help. Mrs. Whitlock stood in the church doorway, prim as ever. "This is what comes of sin," she said to no one. To everyone. Cole got to his feet, slow, heavy. He didn't speak. Didn't give them anything to feed on. Mounted his horse. Rode away. He didn't ride to Eliza. He couldn't. Not like this. He went home. Sat on his porch staring at Sarah's grave. Snow drifted around him, gentle and cruel. He didn't move. Didn't think. just breathed and hurt and felt himself collapsing inward again, like he had before she died. 1 day passed, then 2. Back at the cabin, Eliza waited. At first she told herself he was delayed. On the 2nd day, she knew the truth. The town had gotten its hands on him, and she had been right. Every time she let someone close, she ruined them, so she worked, harder than before, harder than ever, bleeding hands, raw shoulders, no food, no sleep, no fear, just wood and nails and stubbornness that bordered on punishment. Her mind said, "You deserve this." On the 3rd day, she climbed the roof to place the final beam. The one that always needed 2 pairs of hands, she lifted. The weight bent her spine. Her arms shook. She got it halfway up. It slipped. She lunged. Caught it. The beam dragged her, feet sliding. She tumbled down the roof, scrambling, clawing shingles, until only her hands clung to the wood, dangling. Nothing beneath her but air. "Miss Eliza." A small voice cried, "Hope!" The neighbor girl. Eliza's voice broke. "Get help!" Hope ran. Back at the grave, Cole sat with a whiskey bottle he hadn't opened yet, just held. He stared at the wood cross, snow gathering on his shoulders. "I'm doing it again," he whispered, running, hiding, letting fear do the choosing. Memories flickered. Eliza on the roof, Eliza by the fire. Eliza whispering she was cursed and him telling her she wasn't. The wind didn't answer, but hoofbeats did. Moses Doyle rode up slow, dismounted, joints creaking. He didn't look sorry for Cole, didn't look angry. Just looked like a man who had lived long enough to recognize weakness when it tried to masquerade as wounded nobility. He sat beside him. "No invitation needed. Heard you took a beating." Cole said nothing. "Heard you ain't been back." Silence. Moses looked at the grave, then the bottle, then Cole. He said simply, "Son, courage ain't what you do when you feel strong. Courage is what you do when you're breaking." Cole closed his eyes, jaw locked. "What if I lose her?" he rasped. Moses stood, adjusting his coat. "Then you'll hurt, and you'll heal, and you'll keep going, because that's life. What you're doing now." He nodded toward the grave. "That's dying before you're dead." He swung onto his horse. "And that ain't honorable. That's surrender." Hoofbeats faded. Cole stared at the bottle, then dropped it. Didn't even watch it hit the snow. Hoofbeats again, faster, desperate. Hope's voice, breathless, panicked. "Mr. Dawson." "Miss Eliza, she's going to fall." Cole didn't wait to hear more. He was on his horse before Hope finished. He rode like the world was ending. Maybe it was. But not if he could help it. Not this time. He would not be too late again. He rode like the cold air couldn't touch him, like the ground couldn't break him, like every breath was a prayer he didn't know how to say. Frost bit his face. Wind burned his eyes. None of it mattered. The ridge rose ahead. The cabin came into view, half-shaded in early dawn. And there she was. Eliza clung to the edge of the roof, fingers white, body shaking, the heavy beam dragging downward like it wanted to take her with it. "Hold on," Cole shouted. She didn't look down. Didn't look at him. Just held on, because letting go meant the end. He threw himself from the saddle before the horse even stopped, ran, climbed the frame, boots scraping wood and shingles. The world narrowed to one point, her hands slipping, her fingers gave. He caught her wrist. For a moment, everything froze. Her breath, his breath, the air, the world. Just the grip between them, shaking, desperate, real. "I've got you," Cole said, voice breaking. "I've got you. I'm not leaving, not this time." Her eyes met his, shocked, exhausted, disbelieving. Then he hauled her up, using strength he didn't know he still had. They fell onto the roof together, breathless, snow dusting around them like ash. Eliza trembled, not from cold, but from everything held in too long. "You came back," she whispered. Cole rested his forehead against hers. "I will always come back." She let out a sound, half sob, half relief, and collapsed into him. His arms wrapped around her, steady and sure, holding her like something precious, something irreplaceable. They didn't speak for a long time. When they did, the words were simple. "I'm tired of building alone," she whispered. "Then don't," he said. "We build together." Sunday morning, Cole didn't sneak into town. He didn't wait for the whispers to die. He walked straight into the church while the sermon was mid-sentence. Footsteps echoed. Heads turned. Mrs. Whitlock's mouth pinched into a thin line. The preacher paused, clutching his Bible. Cole didn't hesitate. Didn't bow. Didn't apologize. He spoke to everyone, and no one specifically. "I've heard what you all say," he began. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried, clear, steady, undeniable. "You call her cursed. You call her shameful. You cross the street like she's something dirty." Mrs. Whitlock stood. "Mr. Dawson, this is a house of God." "And God sees the heart," Cole said, cutting her off. "Maybe that's the problem. Some of you are scared he sees yours." The room went still. He continued. "Eliza Brennan is the strongest soul I've ever known. She lost everything, and she didn't ask any of you for a thing. She built her own roof, her own walls. She worked while you judged." The preacher opened his mouth, closed it. Cole looked around the room. "I love her. And whether you approve or curse or whisper or spit, don't matter. I choose her." Silence. Then a creak of pew wood. Moses Doyle stood first. "Well," he said, "man can't build a home alone." "Count me in." The blacksmith rose. "Reckon I'll bring my hammer." Hope's mother stood next. "And I'll bring supper." One by one, people rose. Not all, but enough. Enough to make the town shift. Enough to make history. Mrs. Whitlock sat down hard, face white as flour. By sunset, the cabin was finished. Men hammered the last shingles. Women polished windows. Children ran laughing, carrying nails and rope. The final beam, the one Eliza nearly died trying to lift, waited, placed the hammer in her hand. "You finish it," he said. Softly, her hands shook, but only for a moment. She set the nail. She swung. Wood rang like a bell. The saw. Sound echoed through the valley. Sharp, final. "True, done," the crowd cheered. Hope threw her arms around Eliza's waist. Cole's smile was small but steady. The smile of a man who had come back from his own grave. Eliza turned to him. He didn't kneel. Didn't plan